Hello teachers, welcome to Lead to Teach. My name is Sarah Smith and welcome to our final installment of the Crystal Clear Classroom. This is part 3 of our videos about clear expectations within a classroom setting. Remember that you can download guided notes for free at leadtoteach.com if you want something to fill out as we go through the session and refer back to later. But let's jump right into the why of clear expectations. I'm hoping you can recall one more time what Randy Sprick has said about clear expectations. Do you remember Randy Sprick is educational guru? He has said teaching blank expectations is as important as teaching academic subjects. And do you remember what the missing word was? It was behavioral. That it's just as critical that we teach students how to act in our classroom as it is for us to teach them the academic content. We should be just as intentional and just as careful about that as we are about helping them acquire academic skills. So I want to give you a real life example from a second grade teacher with whom I worked a couple of years ago. Let me just orient you to the graphic. The columns here show how many students were engaging in the behavior. Was it a few, a small group, a large group, or most? And then down the side here were behaviors in which the students could engage. So during instruction, there were a large group of kids talking during instruction. Most kids sitting disruptively during instruction. A few kids moving around the classroom during instruction. Then during work time is the next chunk. A large group of kids talking during work time. Most kids sitting disruptively during work time, and a few kids moving around the classroom during work time. Let's see, most kids not transitioning quickly or quietly within the classroom when they were expected to take something out or put something away. A small group of kids not entering the classroom quietly, so it took 2.5 minutes to start the lesson after the students entered from music that day. And then a few kids not keeping hands and feet to self. So every single category is filled in by at least some portion of the students in the classroom, which meant that this fell into a severe level of disruptions in this classroom. Why is this problematic? Because we know that off-task behavior is not compatible with on-task behavior, right? If I am talking during instruction, I cannot also listen and attend during instruction. Those are competing behaviors. So a real-life example about why it's so important to have clear behavioral expectations to the same extent we attend to our academic content. Let me tell you what the research says just briefly. Classrooms that are well managed demonstrate greater student engagement in academic tasks, more rapid pace of progression in academic material, in other words, the students learn the material more quickly, and higher levels of academic achievement. And here's what's interesting to me is that this was a classroom study about management. This was a study about behavior, but what's the most common word on the page? And it's academic, right? In other words, when we focus on classroom management, when classroom management is secure and stable, then we see academic outcomes in our favor and in the students' favor. Okay, one more study, ready? Is research across several decades, like as far back as the 60s, okay, research across several decades has demonstrated that consistent implementation of classroom rules is associated with improved student performance at both the building level and at the classroom level. So if we want improved student performance at the classroom and the building level, it means having consistent implementation of expectations. Okay, so then the question always becomes, how then do you get kids to meet your expectations? How do I most effectively do this? Let's talk about the how. Remember, there are 2 phases, the training phase, which we've talked about for the past 2 videos, and then maintenance, which is what we'll talk about in this session. Okay, so there's 2 phases to training and expectation, and let's just spend a single slide reviewing the training phase, if you don't mind. So remember, we said that TEMPO is a really good acronym to remember a good format for training a behavior. So if I wanted to teach my students to sit ready to listen, the T stood for tell students the task. We're going to learn something called power position. Do you remember E was explain what it looks and sounds like? I'm going to have you scoot your chair in, fold your arms on top of your desk, your mouth is closed. M stood for model. We're going to model the behavior. Let me show you what this is going to look like. P stood for practice. Now let's try it together. And then O stood for offer feedback, either affirmative or corrective. Let me tell you how you did meeting that target. So we talked about this is the training phase. Really, really, really important to do when you're trying to set up classroom rules initially. Do you remember that? And then we said training expectations is also especially important during, remember this one? Transitions, right? Which is anytime students are expected to shift from one task or activity to another. Much like we as drivers on the road constantly shift what we're doing as we're navigating the roads. So anytime students have to shift tasks or activities, that's called a transition. That would also be a really, really important time to train an expectation. So here's what kept happening. I kept working with teachers who were telling me kind of the same thing. So for instance, Kim, a second grade teacher, said to me, well, I did tempo and my kids were doing so well at first, but now they keep talking every time I ask them to take something out of their desk or put something away. Valerie, a kinder teacher, said, I did tempo. We were so careful at first. They were lining up so quickly from recess, but they're not doing it anymore. And then Jenny, a first grade teacher, same thing. I did tempo. I did every single step. They were doing so well, but now they just keep fidgeting with materials during the lesson. So what kept happening in all of these situations is that the behavior wasn't maintaining, right? And we're going to say maintaining or maintenance is continued performance over time once all teaching has ceased. So now the teacher has ceased training the behavior and the performance is not maintaining. Oh, that's problematic. It is. So I want to talk about maintenance. How do you maintain everyday expectations? What does that look like to set an everyday expectation? Here's the chart that I kept drawing for the teachers I just told you about and other teachers like them. Here's the chart I kept drawing over and over again. You're seeing it in its true original format. Is that the very first thing we have to do is state an expectation. And even if we're not in the training phase, we still need to tell our students what the behavior looks like, what it sounds like, and in how long. And then that expectation has to be followed by the feedback, the praise, or the correction. So what parts of tempo are left out? That's what I'm hoping you can identify. I'm still telling them the task and I'm still explaining what it looks and sounds like and how long. I'm still offering feedback, but what are the two pieces that are left out of tempo? And of course it would be the model and the practice. I don't want to have to model every time I want my kids to meet an expectation. I don't want to have to practice every time I need kids to meet an expectation. What I want to be able to do is something like this. Tell you how it looks with your body, how it sounds with your mouth, and in how long, giving them a time frame. And I don't think I've talked about this very much yet, but let me just say that a time frame would be so important because we know from lots of research that whether you're a child or a teenager or an adult, people respond faster when their behavior is being timed. And it doesn't matter if there's a reward or a penalty attached to the length of time in which the task is completed. People just automatically perform faster if they know their behavior is being timed. So if you want your kids to go more quickly, that would be a really, really important component to include when you set up an expectation. Okay, so let me just run through an example. Let's suppose we're coming in after recess, getting ready to go back to our seats. So I might say something like, you're welcome to grab a drink from your water bottle and then you'll walk to your seat and sit in power position. So did you identify what they're supposed to do with their bodies? They can get a drink. They're going to walk to their seats and sit in power position. That's what they're doing. That's how it looks. How does it sound? We're going to do this quietly. And how long? In 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. So in a nutshell, that's what it looks like, how it looks, how it sounds, in how long after you've done the training component. And over time, how it looks, how it sounds, and how long should begin to go more quickly. It should begin to feel more routine, right? So I could say, go ahead and quietly get your drink and meet me at your seats in 10, 9, 8, because the students know that this is the format. This is predictable to them at this point. The reason I put a picture of my cute daughter here on her 16th birthday is because I mentioned before that the very first time I took Isabel out driving oh goodness, we spent 45 minutes just parking. We spent 45 minutes just on parking skills. And at this point, luckily, we don't have to do that anymore. At this point, parking is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. And I'm so grateful for that, right? So is she. But at this point, the behavior has become routine because she's done it enough. And we want the same thing to happen in our classroom. But we can't do that unless we're still willing to say how it looks, how it sounds, and in how long, even if it's just brief. Okay, so I want to show you this video of first graders taking out whiteboards. And I want you to notice that the kiddos are told how the behavior should look, how it should sound, and in how long. We've already gone through tempo, we've already done the training phase. Would you watch now what it looks like in maintenance phase? So right now, what I'm going to watch for are kids who, without talking, get their whiteboard marker and sock ready. Go. Let's do it in 10, 9. Okay. So here's been my experience is that most teachers tend to easily buy into this expectation model. They say, okay, tell kids what to do with body, with mouth, and in how long. Yep, I can do that. That makes sense. What tends to be the hard part for teachers? It's the feedback. It's offering feedback after that expectation is stated, either affirmatively or correctively. And what I mean by feedback is that every expectation should be immediately followed by either the praise or correction, or maybe let me say that a different way. Every expectation should be immediately followed always by praise and correction as needed, because I think you'll always have kids who are meeting the expectation and who will give you an opportunity to praise. But it's this immediacy factor that tends to be the difficult part for teachers, to think through how it looks, how it sounds, and how long, and to think about what I'm going to go do next, what's my next task, and to also remember, oh yeah, as I'm counting down, I gotta pepper that countdown with feedback. So let me give you an example. I might say, for my expectation, I need everyone in power position. That means your chair is scooted up, your arms are on top of your desk, and your mouth is closed. Go ahead and do it quickly, right? And maybe that's my time frame, is just do it quickly. My feedback then would look like this. Perfect, Janie. Yep, just like that. Or, Owen, nope, your mouth is closed. If I were doing something that required a countdown, it might be like, go ahead and get your drink, walk to your seat, and meet me in power position. Go ahead and do that quietly in 10, 9, Janie, just like that. Beautiful. Thank you, little lady. 8, 7, Owen. Yep, perfect. Nice job, dude. 6, 5, Todd, your mouth is closed. We're not talking to our neighbors. So 10 seconds doesn't really mean 10 seconds, right? We're counting down so that they go more quickly, but we know that it's really going to be more like 30 seconds, especially because we are peppering our countdown with the feedback. So I want to show you this video again, and I'm wanting you to notice how many students are praised, if you don't mind. And I want you to also notice how immediately the praise is given as students are directed to take out their whiteboards. So right now, what I'm going to watch for are kids who, without talking, get their whiteboard marker and sock ready. Go. Let's do it in 10, 9, Maddie's super fast, 8, Coraline already has hers, 6, 5, Remy already done, 4, 3, 2, and everybody already is ready. Oh my goodness. Alexa, you too? Ay, ay, ay. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I will add another point. Thank you very much. Okay, so in that example, how many students did you count were praised? Probably about 5, right? How many students were corrected? In that instance, it was 0. We didn't need to do any corrections that time. So quick tip, this is something most teachers probably already know, is that praise will always be more powerful than correction in shaping behavior, which is why we say always praise and correct as needed. This is so important that there will be a couple of videos devoted just to this idea, but just as a quick tip right now. Okay, so in this next video, starting letter cards with the first graders, what I'm wanting you to notice is that corrections happen as needed. And I'm hoping you can watch for an individual correction and a whole group correction. Because remember, if kids don't meet your expectation, there's that affirmative and corrective feedback. Always affirmative, but we still sometimes need to do corrective feedback as well. So let's look at what that looks like. So I am starting with Letter cards. Appreciate kids that are already sitting in power position. I should see that pencils are parked, just like that. They're at the edge of your desk. We're not touching them. And our eyeballs are up here just like Alexa, starting on E. Ready? E, combination, ER, combination, IR.
Combination QU.
I'm going to pause there because I don't have everybody's eyes up here. I need everybody's eyes up here and everybody's mouth moving. That will tell me that you know it. Just like that, Maddie. Starting combination. That means you're not touching it. You're just going to leave it there and put your arms just like Savannah. Thank you. Starting combination. Okay. So having thought through the components of how to maintain an expectation, having seen some video examples, I want to show you now 3 scenarios and see if you can identify what's wrong in each of them. Why is the behavior falling apart? And we're going to assume herein that tempo has already been done, that the students have been trained intentionally and carefully about how to meet the expectation in the first place. Okay, so scenario number 1. Let's assume that the teacher tells the students to walk quickly back from seats to the rug. And let's assume that students begin talking as they move, even with immediate feedback, even though the teacher immediately begins praising kids who are doing it well and individually correcting students who do not quite do it right. Could you identify what the problem is? Of course, you're welcome to pause this, think through it on your own, but here's what I would identify, is that the teacher didn't remind the students how the behavior should sound. I don't care if you've been in school for 9 months and you have the best class in the world, you probably still want to say, go ahead and quickly meet me back at your seats, mouths are closed, go. You probably still want to attach that just so it's really crystal clear, get it, that students should be doing that every time they move. Quick tip, stating expectation quietly tends to invite quiet responding. And I mention that because I hear so many teachers as a coach who do the opposite of that. Who say something like, okay, students, we're going to go back to our seats now. We're going to go super quickly. We're going to go super quietly. Ready, go. And they're just kind of in high volume mode, and the kids mimic them, even though they've stated what it should look like and what it should sound like, even though they're maybe doing a countdown with feedback. Sometimes their volume is the problem because kids are mimicking them. Just a quick piece of research here is that teachers who were taught to deliver instructions in a specific direct manner and who did so in a quiet voice tone saw an increase in student compliance and academic engagement, which would mean I could still say the same thing. I would just want to cue the students by my own volume how that behavior was going to sound. So it might sound like, okay, second graders, in just a minute, we're going to head back to our seats. We're going to go quickly and quietly. Ready? Go. And maybe you're doing a countdown. Maybe you don't need a countdown anymore. Maybe the behavior has become routine enough that you don't need the countdown, but I'm cueing them by my volume how they should sound. So just a quick plug for that. Okay, scenario number 2 is that the teacher explains how the behavior should look and sound, but students are not coming to seats quickly after recess. Let's suppose that the teacher clarifies the expectation, that he or she praises, corrects as needed, right? So the feedback is there and the students are still going slowly. What might you implement to improve this behavior? Remembering that people tend to go faster if their behavior is timed. Did that give it away? You probably already realized it's that the teacher didn't implement a time frame for the task. Anytime we want kids to go more quickly, we always implement a time frame. That's the very first, okay, maybe I should say second, because we would want to clarify what we want to have happen. But that would be the second piece of that, is that we're going to time the behavior. A quick tip, I've seen some teachers do this really effectively, I really like it, is that some transitions may require an actual displayed timer in the training phase. So maybe I'm getting my phone out in the training phase and saying, okay, you're going to pretend to go play, I'm going to blow the whistle, and then I'm going to start my timer, and you're going to have 1 minute to be in line, standing quickly, or standing quietly and getting there quickly. Ready, go. And you're using a public displayed timer so that they can get a feel for how much time is elapsing and what that looks like, and so they know you're serious about it. Here's another quick tip related to this, is that pretended timers work too. I sometimes, if I go into a classroom to do a guest lesson and I want the kids to go more quickly, we'll find the clock on the wall wherever it is, and then I will tell them something like, we're going to get out whiteboards. We're going to do this with our mouths closed. We're going to get the cap, put it on the back of our marker. And I want to see if you can do this in 10 seconds. I'm watching the clock. Ready, go. 10, 9, and I'm not really watching the clock. I don't really know how much time is elapsing, especially if I start using feedback, but you can use a pretended timer. You don't have to actually get your phone out every time because that can be time consuming and obnoxious. Okay, scenario number 3, let's suppose that the teacher tells the students to put away papers quickly, quietly, and uses a time frame. And students initially comply but then begin talking even with immediate praise, even though the teacher has identified those students who are doing it well. Can you identify the problem? Probably my guess would be that the teacher didn't also offer corrective feedback for the behavior. Remember, feedback has 2 legs, right? It has the affirmative side and the corrective side. Both supports are necessary in order to hold up that expectation. So I would say if the teacher didn't also offer corrective feedback when it was needed, then that could be the problem. Quick tip is that corrections can include redos and removals if the vocal correction isn't enough. In other words, if I say to Owen, your mouth is closed, and other kids have started talking and the behavior doesn't correct, then I can do a redo or removal. Do you remember that? That was on the chart. Expectation followed by feedback, and feedback can be vocal or tangible, vocal, redo, removal. So I want to show you a video example of that if you don't mind. And I just want you to look at who is required to redo the behavior. Is it an individual? Is it a small group? Or is it the whole class? And I'm going to give you a disclaimer right now that this was my fault. that somebody required my attention, that I had to go to the back of the classroom. I had to start a conversation with an adult and the kids were just waiting. So there was no task at hand. But I still required a redo because I wanted them to understand that I was serious when I asked them to wait quietly. So it is my fault. I set them up for this, but it's still okay to require those expectations be met even when things aren't going exactly as planned. I'd like you to take this paper and quietly put it in your blue folder. Watching for kids that do, oh, Tyler already has it out quietly. I will take kids to recess who quietly get this put away and are sitting ready for the next direction. Zach already has his put away. Oh, I want you to do that again, quietly this time. Go ahead and do it quietly. Kaylee sitting ready. Jacob's sitting ready, and Ashlyn, thank you. Oh, my class, your directions were to quietly put your papers in your folders. I should not hear any talking. Guess what? Because we didn't follow that direction the first time, we have to do it again. Everybody quietly take out your blue folder. Take your letter N page back out. Thank you, Zach. Yep. Wyatt, thank you. This time when I give you that direction, look at my eyeballs. Don't do it yet. Look at my eyeballs. This time when I tell you to quietly put it away, I want you to do it without talking. Watch my mouth. It means your mouth stays closed the whole time. Without talking, quietly put your letter N page in your blue folder. Todd, first one done. Finn sitting quietly, perfect. Trevor sitting quietly, love it. Tate ready. Tyler getting his put away. Hallie ready, Zach. Okay, guess what? That time that was much faster. I appreciate that, put that away quickly. I appreciate that you fixed the problem and that you did it quietly that time. That was much better. That tells me you're ready for recess. Okay. So who was required to redo the behavior? Initially, did you notice it was just an individual student? It was just one kiddo, but eventually it was the whole class because the behavior grew from just a single kid to a small group of kids who were not meeting the expectation. So don't worry, there's a whole video about redos and removals in the umbrella of correction, but just as a quick summary right now, it would be really important to know that you have to have corrective feedback to support your expectations. Okay, final question then would be, what did you like or learn about maintaining expectations? What's something that maybe surprised you or something you reflected on or thought about? For me, here's the idea that I like, is that it's always, always, always easier to release structure than to impose it later. It's much easier to start with really firm expectations, really high expectations, to require swift redos, to do really rich praise. It's always easier to start with a lot more high level of structure and to gradually release it as the behavior becomes routine than to start loose and have to tighten up later and try to pick up the pieces later from a classroom that has fallen into chaos. So I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.